Hello, my name is Jamie Irvin. I'm the host of the Heavy Duty Parts Report, and welcome to another edition of HDPR webinar. Today, we are going to be talking about data again. We're going to be talking about e-commerce. We're going to be talking about fear. And in this webinar, we're really going to get to the bottom of how many heavy-duty companies, especially parts companies, can be very fearful about putting their data out there into the open marketplace for everyone to see. We're going to talk about why that fear is based on something real, but also how things are changing and we need to change our viewpoint on that. So without further ado, let me introduce you to Kris Harrington. Now, Kris is the president and COO of GenAlpha, and she's here today to talk to me. Kris, welcome to our webinar today.
Hi, Jamie. Great to be here. Thanks for having me.
Looking forward to us having another conversation. For the people who've been following the Heavy Duty Parts Report for a long time, they've gotten to know you. You've been on the podcast. We've done webinars before. Today's a bit different, though. We really want to have an empathetic conversation around a challenge and an issue that a lot of heavy-duty parts companies, especially the more traditionally built and organized companies, are having with this shift to digital sales channel and e-commerce. So can we start maybe our conversation today by just talking about what's the fear? What have you heard people say to you in the past?
Yeah, I would say that for sure, every company that we've worked with as GenAlpha Technologies in the e-commerce, e-catalog space, companies have to get comfortable sharing their data. And that's just something that historically they haven't been able, they haven't had to do, really, right? So for so long, data has been controlled. And there's lots of different reasons for this. And you're bringing up one, which is fear, right? And we can talk, and we probably will talk about where some of those fears stem from. But I think that people understand that things are moving in a new direction, for sure. There's this digital side of things that they need to get comfortable with. But because historically, people who have been in the business for so long haven't given that type of information out readily, they're struggling with what do we show? When do we show it, and to who do we show it to? So I think it's just getting comfortable with something that for so long they just didn't have to do, right? I mean, big manufacturing companies and then the distributors that, of course, sold their products, they just didn't have to be so open. They would let these companies come back to them. And it's not that they never shared information, if we think about it, right? Of course, they would answer questions, but it was typically requiring a phone call or an email to get the information that you were looking for. And it was typically only as much information as you were asking for. So if we want to look at it in one way, data has historically been very reactive. I'm the customer. I need some information. My unit is down, and the manufacturer, distributor is reacting to that need. It's not out of all this information is available and questions can be answered online. So it's really moving from a reactive place to actually leaning in and saying, if we want to be competitive in this new competitive space, we've got to get comfortable putting the data out there. So yeah, everybody's struggling with this.
Yeah. And when I worked for a remanufacturing company, and I've worked for distribution companies. And I mean, product data and information is almost considered sacred in a lot of ways. And there's always been that fear. Well, if we publish our special pricing as a distributor, then all that's going to happen is the competition's going to grab that flyer and they're going to just kind of grind everybody off of our price, and just kind of that race to the bottom ensues. And I've even heard stories, I didn't see this myself, but I've heard stories of some buyers with every supplier's flyer pinned up to his board. And basically the salesperson comes in and says, give me your weekly flyer, and he pins it up on the board, right? And so it's not that the fear is unfounded. There's a problem there where, companies do need to be profitable. They have to be able to make money. So maybe by definition, let's start by defining product information, because it's more than just price.
Yeah, for sure. Just to comment on what you just said too, I would say that none of us want to enable the competition. That's why that price has been held back, and price is one of those items that has been so sacred. But there's a lot of additional information that buyers need in a buying process to help them do their job. Because I think it's important for us in the setting that we're in to remember that when somebody's coming in a heavy duty parts scenario, they're not browsing for products typically, right? A unit is down. There's something urgent related to finding the right part for what they need to get that unit back up and running and allow it to be productive like they're expecting it to be. So they want to get that truck back on the road. And the information that they're looking for first is confirmation that it is the part that they need for the vehicle that they're doing maintenance or repair on. I want to highlight, and we can talk a lot about this, that the first main objective for them is the fear of getting it wrong. And historically, manufacturers and distributors have been that company that they called on, and the distributor would say, okay, what's your make, model, and year, or what's your VIN number? Maybe the distributor would say, send us a picture of it. Rather than having a picture available, they were asking the technician to go take a picture of the thing that he needs so that they could then confirm from them that that's what they need. So the first data element is anything related to confirming for me that it is in fact the product that I need for my unit that's down.
I wanted to just address that because one of my clients is Turbo Solutions. They remanufacture turbos, and they said something to me very interesting recently. They said, some people are afraid to even sell turbos because if it goes wrong, it's like strapping a grenade to the side of a $60,000 diesel engine. So the fear of getting it wrong with the part is significant, and it could be failure and the cost of that failure, but it could also be safety because some of the parts are related to suspension, braking, those kinds of things. And if it goes wrong, someone could die. So I get what you're saying about the fear of getting the part wrong. And you mentioned the urgency of a unit down scenario, but I also immediately thought of the importance, it's less urgent, but the importance of speccing your equipment correctly for your vocational application. So there's that side of it too, where maybe there's no urgency, but you've got to get it right, because if you get it wrong, it's going to cost your company perhaps millions of dollars.
Sure. Yeah. And, and that's the other fear, right? So we talked about the fear of competitors getting certain information. But then there's also the fear that in some way, whatever data you're providing will be misused, right? And that goes to a potential misuse in safety. It could be assumptions people make. So, let me think of an example. If I say that this Cummins engine fits this model and year, someone might make an assumption that the same model, but in a different year, has that same Cummins engine. So now they make a mistake in the ordering process, and people fear there'll be product returns and other things. So these are where, so you've got the safety side of it. It's just that confirmation, I think, is something that's been so critical historically, and why that's such an important piece for manufacturers and distributors to get that part right. Because once you give them the confirmation that they now have the right part, so they've searched for something, it does in fact fit their unique model and serial number or VIN, now all the other information, and we can talk about all that other buying information, how much does it weigh? What does it look like? Just so I, maybe a parts image so I can confirm, yep, that's the exact same size. When can I get it? How many do I need? What's my price, right? So these are all those other data questions. So product information has a lot of attributes. And when we talk about the friction in the buying process, getting it right is one piece, but then it's all the things that I need to know after I know I've got this right component. Now I need to get it here fast. I need it to get on time. I need to set up a schedule for all the people that need to be available once it arrives. So getting that other information is really critical as well.
Let's talk about the buying cycle and the way that things being purchased in heavy duty parts has fundamentally been changed or is being changed by technology. So let's go back for a minute. You mentioned before that the old way was very reactive. It was I phone you, Kris, I got this unit. I think I need part number 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. I'm not sure. You say to me, okay, send me a picture. Let's make sure. What's the year, make, model? Let me check my records. You've bought this part before for unit 13. Is that the same truck? Oh, yeah, it is. Okay, great. So that was the nature of the conversation when buying parts. But in the new digital age, more and more people want to be able to ascertain all that information on their own. You gave me an interesting statistic. You said that 70% of buyers are doing research online before a transaction is made. And now, of course, that statistic covers all buyers. But I think that is where we are headed, where people are going to say, I'm not going to trust this decision to just anybody. I want to verify ahead of time that I've got the right information. You can't do that if the information's not available.
That's right. Yeah. And, the places that people are going to search are Google. They're typing in some type of information, maybe their model and year, and the specific product that they're thinking, transmission, right? So they enter Freightliner 2020 transmission or whatever it might be. They're typing in some elements of information. And if you're not making any information available, none at all, you haven't started thinking about how to attract those digital users who are going to ask those questions in Google or Bing or whatever search engine they're using, then you don't even have a chance of coming up as an opportunity to then get the user to buy from you or your sales channel, right? So that's the key right there, is that those people that rely on technology and maybe haven't had the relationship with a business, because we all know that baby boomers in these businesses have a lot of tribal knowledge right now, right? And we speak of tribal knowledge. That was the term we used back in my manufacturing days. Is I can name some people on our team where you would go to them when you were struggling to identify the right component. We have to find a way to document that tribal knowledge, because there isn't anyone behind them that has that same information. The reality is those new buyers they don't have the relationship to call in to know that guy knows it anyway. So they're going to the internet, because there's a generation out there today that believes that everything they need to know is available on the internet. So they're going there first.
Yeah. Okay. So when I worked for Truck Pro, one of their Canadian stores, Arctic Truck Parts in my hometown, Hank Fisher has been doing heavy duty parts for 50 years.
Yeah.
We live in a small community, 8,500 people. He controls $3 million in annual heavy duty parts purchases in the palm of his hand, simply because he's the only guy in that town that you call, because after 50 years of doing this, he knows everything. He's in his 70s. He loves working, but eventually he's going to stop. The next oldest parts person at that store is in his early 30s with only 15, not even 15 years experience. You just can't replicate that kind of experience. And so what immediately came to mind as you were describing that is you have a company, let's say, that has a lot of relationships in the industry. They control millions of dollars in parts purchases a year, and they're profitable. And in 5 years, all their top most experienced people could be retiring, and an upstart company could then come and displace them because they're doing a better job of capitalizing on search.
That's right.
And all of a sudden, the power just shifts.
Yeah. As I was planning for this conversation with you, I was thinking about exactly that, and thinking that I think product information will become the differentiator in the future for these companies, right? Because if I've got it and I've documented it and I'm using it well, and I'm giving people that security, especially the younger generation that also doesn't want to make mistakes for identifying the right part for the job, right? They don't want to make mistakes, but they don't know Hank necessarily. They know the internet, and they believe they're going to get their solutions there. So what's going to happen is they're going to navigate to the sites that keep providing them the right answers and help them do their job. So those that have provided this data are essentially differentiating themselves to those others. And you were talking in a podcast at the end of the year, I forgot the gentleman's name who you were speaking to, but you started talking about the commonality that exists in fleets, right? And there's about 70% commonality and another 30% that's unique. And we find that to be true in a lot of the manufacturing bills of materials and 2D and 3D drawings that we convert for companies. Mm-hmm. That there's a high level of commonality. And then there's that proprietary information that's very specific to a VIN that I think, manufacturers that decide not to move online quickly, they're going to be able to hold the proprietary stuff for a while. There'll always be will fitters and others that are going to compete for that stuff. But that other 70% that's common, and it's across almost every industry that we touch. If it's not 70, it could be 80, it could be 85%. Some might be 60 on the lower end, but it's still high. That's where this differentiation of product data is really going to be powerful, because all they'll have to be is really good at that data, and they're going to generate a lot of revenue, and they're going to be able to take that business from other companies. So then these other businesses are only relying on their proprietary stuff to save them. And for most of us, I know in my history, that wouldn't be enough. That doesn't allow you to be innovative and be top. So a leader in your space. Yeah. So I think, I've said a lot there, but I go back to your 70-30 because it really resonated with me. And it's certainly true for the companies that we work with. That commonality, if you're not providing cross-reference information, you're not providing specifications, you're not making it easy to find you're going to be left behind. And that could be the big challenge.
Yeah. And I think now we've got to talk then about what you said with friction in the buying process, because it is like, let's just look at Amazon. I mean, it is just so easy to do business with them. I like supporting local. My wife and I just bought a furniture set. We went local, right? But, I bought a new camera. We went local, but I couldn't get a lighting kit for my studio on Amazon. Ordered it. Like a day and a half later, it showed up at my door. I was set up, ready to go. It was so easy. And when something goes wrong, the return is simple. You throw it in a box, you slap the label on it, you send it back. 99.9% of the time, you're going to get a credit, and away you go. It's just so easy to do business with them. And they've made all the data available.
That's right. Yeah. And what's interesting is, before we both started buying from Amazon, and by the way, I appreciate that you buy local. I have a small farmette here, and we sell local things in the summertime and everything else. So I support local as well. But there are other things we need in life, right? But before Amazon ever knew us, they were really working hard to capture information once we came to. The advantage, I think, manufacturers and dealers and distributors have today is they actually know their clients. It is a B2B setting. They have a lot of data and information about them. So it's also transforming the data you have to facilitate that ease in doing business online as well. If you and I do business together and you're the manufacturer and I'm the customer who owns a piece of equipment, of your equipment that you've manufactured, You know my account number, you know my pricing in the ERP system, you know the equipment that I own, or you should have some records of it, right? So if you want me to log in so that I can get my special pricing and I can see all of that different information, and you can provide the defaults with my ship to and bill to address because you have all of this. I think that's the advantage that we have in a B2B setting with our current clients already, is that we know lots of information about them. Let's leverage that and not forget that we have all that data to facilitate removing that friction when it comes to buying, right? And if you know that I own 3 units of yours, make sure that's what I see. Make sure that that's really easy for me to identify. If I call that unit 15 in my fleet, make sure that when I come in, I can search by unit 15 for me. Yeah, that's really personalized. Now, I want to keep coming back to do business with Jamie because he's remembering all these things about me, and he's had the data all along anyway.
As you were describing that, we've done a very good job in the heavy-duty parts industry of being relationship focused. We do this in the offline world, right? I mean, that's why people like to do business with who they like to do business with. Because, like, for example, with my clients, I would be driving around and visiting them regularly. I knew them by name. I knew a lot of information about the way that they like to do business, what their goals were. And I was always searching for ways to try to provide them value. So we already know how to do this in the offline. There seems to be a little bit of a disconnect sometimes of taking that approach and just moving it online, moving it to the digital space. But fundamentally, it's the same principles. We just have to find ways of doing it digitally.
That's right. You described it perfectly. And I think, some companies think they need to create this experience all on their own, right? So they think, I need to design my website. I need to design this personalization. I need to do these things. And in reality, they don't know how to do these things digitally because they've never had to do it before. So that's where finding the right partners, and they all exist out there. GenAlpha is just one example of a company that knows how to do this and can help companies with their data, with their customer accounts, make it more personalized. We've already, for us, we've been in the business for over 10 years now. But we're still waiting for a lot of companies to catch up with the technology that exists. So we've learned so much in that experience that we're ready to help. You don't have to design these things. That's not what you do best. You sell and service products, and you need to keep being innovative at what you do. Let the people who've gone through that experience help you bring those relationships to life through the technology that they've already designed to do that. So I think you're right. You're hitting the nail on the head there with just shifting. It's not a significant change in the way you do business. And in the short term, there's still a lot of people that want those relationships. So you still have to maintain that, but you can't miss out on the way business is changing as well. Otherwise, you truly will be left behind when the true full shift occurs.
So I think of my experience as I've built my company, both the Heavy Duty Parts Report, which is basically a media company, as well as the consulting work that I do in the background. When I think of what I bring as a value proposition, it's similar to what you do is I have a lot of years of experience in heavy duty. I also have many years of experience building digital relationships with people and learning how to do that both as a company and as an individual. So I can explain to someone in 10 minutes, almost 10 years of trying to figure this out and all the mistakes I made. And I can help you avoid all of those mistakes. GenAlpha can help navigate through this transition period in your company and get you set up with an established digital sales channel and an e-commerce platform and save you a lot of pain and a lot of heartache where you don't have to go and make all the mistakes. Like, we've already done the mistakes. We've already tried different things and saw what worked and saw what didn't work. And we can help expedite that for you and get you results faster. So that's why we keep making this content together because we want you to come and work with us. Let us help you, and let us help you avoid some of the challenges and be successful a lot sooner than if you tried to do it on your own.
Yeah, absolutely. I can't say it any better than you do when it comes to how much we want to help companies not make the mistakes that we've seen or we've experienced or we've found new solutions for already, right? Yeah. As you were talking, I was thinking about a prospect that we're just talking to now, and they have a number of things that they'd like to achieve, and they've been looking at B2C sites, and they've been taking the feedback from their team members, and they see what's available out there. And that's great. That means they're thinking, they're talking, that they're having the right conversations, and they brought people together. But some of the items on their wish list are things that we as advisors ask them, who would benefit from that in this B2B setting? When we think about your customers, and that's what I always remind companies in our business to do, is put your feet in the shoes of your customers and think about what's most beneficial for them. And try to remember to keep it simple.
Keep it simple, because simple's hard enough.
Yeah. And, again, so many of these companies that we work with, people aren't really browsing. They're just not going to come and look for things. No, they're looking for something very specific because they have a need. There's a problem. The problem has to be solved. And 90% of the time, that's why they're going to be coming to you. So let's make sure that that part is so clean for them and focus on what they need to achieve that. And then you start building in the other.
Okay, so we're talking, really, we ask people to come have this conversation with us today because we recognize that there is genuine fear in the marketplace, that people are scared of, making a mistake when it comes to revealing what information and data they have. Is there a case for protecting some data? Is there still a reason for a company to try to protect their intellectual property?
Yeah, I would say there probably will always be a case for intellectual property or trade secrets or how a product is produced or the materials that go into a product. Customers don't need to know everything related to what you do. They just, again, need the confirmation that what they're buying from you is what they need for their job. And, they also want from you more than maybe just the part, right? They might want an alternative to that part if that alternative can increase the life cycle of that component. They might want the kit that goes with that part so that it eases the change out and the maintenance or repair that they're going to do. And it provides a level of confirmation that, hey, I'm not just changing this Bendix brake, but I need the brake pads, I need the adapters, I need the springs and some hardware, right? So they want confirmation. They don't need to know all the information related to their business. Once they have that confirmation and maybe a little assistance on how to do it better or how to get some greater benefit, then they just need an easier ordering process from that point on. They need to know, I would say confirmation is the number one thing that they need in our world. The second thing they need is the availability of the part. That's going to be the second most important. Availability, when can I get it? How fast can I get it? Where is it located? All of the things related to availability. And if it's available, price becomes less sensitive, right? So price is the other aspect that they're looking for. So confirmation, availability, and price are the three things that they really need from you. If you can do that, you don't have to give away all your trade secrets and other information. You just got to help them with that. And the other thing that I would say regarding this is that businesses, companies, they still have a choice in what information to make available to everyone. The customers that we work with, Many of them have a distribution relationship, and their agreement with the distributors is that the distributors work directly with the end customer. So those manufacturers that we work with, they make the process of identifying that part easy. They work towards doing that. But when it comes to price and availability, they're either saying register for a login or contact your dealer. And then there's a contact dealer and they facilitate that. Now, is it the best customer experience? That's a question that these companies need to keep asking themselves. When that person moves away from your website, and often it's very challenging to get anybody to your website. So you never really want them to leave if you can keep them there. But once they go away and they've got that data that they need, are they for sure going to go to your dealer network? And then once they go to your dealers, are your dealers truly going to come back and buy from you? Those are all the things that we need to continue to think about. But there are choices companies have with respect to what data they show and when and to who. So they don't have to make everything available. That's an important point. If you don't own my equipment, maybe I don't want to show you equipment until you have demonstrated that you own a piece of equipment, either with some piece of information or you're logging in and I have a relationship with you. So everything doesn't have to be automatically available too. We have to think about the business. Who are the customers? When will they be coming? How will they be searching and target appropriately?
Sometimes we are at risk of wanting to over communicate. So it's kind of funny that we start talking about over communicating when we're actually talking about maybe fear and restricting data. But I read this one book and it talked about in sales, when a customer asks you, how does it work? We tend to want to give like all of the reasons. Well, the widget is made of this aluminum and and we just go all into the specs. And the recommendation was just say, oh, it works great. And let the customer tell you what they actually want to know. And I've tried it and it works. It's like, oh, it works great. And all the person was looking for was confirmation. They don't care about what the widget's made out of. They want to know it works. And if you tell them it works great, they'll say, okay, let's buy it. And that works in offline, but it also works in the digital space, because all you have to do is have a video at the exact spot where a person starts to think, how does it work? And they can click that video and it's you saying, hey, it works really great. We've got lots of customers who enjoyed it. You're going to enjoy it too. Why not go ahead and buy it? It's like a 15-second video. And that could be the one little piece in the buying process that just helps bridge that gap. But there's probably 100 different spots in the buying process where you could analyze it and say, what makes this a good experience? What information do my perfect customer need at exactly that moment to move them to the next phase in the buying cycle, and get them to a decision? And if you can just kind of reverse engineer that whole process and work with your partners, work with your suppliers if you're a distributor, work with your distributors if you're a manufacturer, figure out what the customer wants and give it to them. It can be that simple.
That's right. And when you start using digital tools, and I know we've talked about this in past time together, but analytics really help you understand those points where they got so far in the buying process and then they abandoned the cart. And how many people are abandoning that cart? Are the same parts being abandoned? That's going to get you to evaluate, is there something missing? Is that where I should insert the video that says this is great, right? Or whatever specification or additional information or an installation instruction or a maintenance hours interval when this thing should be changed. Something that's giving them that confirmation that, yep, take the next step. You've got it. You've got the information you need now. And analytics is designed to help businesses do that. And there really isn't a way without analytics and a digital solution to start getting that information.
Yeah, I totally agree. So we're going to talk about, we're just going to recap the positives of making data transparent in the marketplace. And while we're doing that, with people who are listening, watching right now, if you have any questions, now's the time and we'll be happy to answer them. Otherwise, we will go right into our special offer. So Kris, just by a way of summarizing our conversation today, what are the positives about being transparent with your data?
Reduce the friction in the ordering process, deliver a better customer experience, ensure that you're relevant in the future when all of those digital natives are buying online and taking more important roles in organizations. You want to be a part of that group that's differentiating themselves with the product information, because ultimately they'll either be revenue growth or there's going to be revenue loss. So you have to start paying attention to this, because it's going to hurt where it hurts most, and that's a financial impact if we're not making the right changes in this direction.
Yeah, that's right. So this isn't going away. We are just going to become more and more sophisticated on the digital side of doing business. So the industry is, and I think a lot of people are coming around to that. They're realizing that it's time now to adopt. And now the question is, how do we do that? So by way of providing our viewers today with a special offer, Kris, what are we offering them today?
We are offering for companies that reach out to us in the next 30 days and start a relationship and begin working with us, 6 months free SaaS for starting an online store. So we're going to really help e-commerce or companies launch their e-commerce platform. And, we want to make sure that they're getting the value and seeing the value. And I think this is a great opportunity. Obviously, any company who works in the SaaS world, that's the way that we get paid. And we're willing to give 6 months away for free for anybody that's interested after hearing this webinar and having a conversation with us. Let's talk.
Awesome. Awesome. Well, I appreciate it so much. Thank you very, very much from all of us at the Heavy Duty Parts Report. Taryn, do we have any questions that we can talk about or try to answer for people today?
Yeah, one just came in. How do you help lead traditional counter customers to web portals? And how do you overcome objections to online sales?
Yeah, so the counter questions. So over-the-counter sales is something that's been happening in heavy duty for a long time, right? So the biggest thing is to take what are those questions that over-the-counter people are answering and make that data available online, right? So again, over-the-counter sales are not going to stop in the short term. They're still going to reach out to those local guys like we've talked about, and they're going to have, they're going to rely on them for information. But the ones that are using digital and those that believe that any answer can be found online, we've got to convert the information that your counter guys are offering. We've got to make that available online. And again, we have to just keep it simple. A lot of the same questions, what's your model, what's your year, what's your VIN, all of that can be addressed online and can get people very quickly to the information that they need. The data is available.
When it comes to this idea of transitioning, that's the word that I want people to focus on. We're not talking about shutting everything down that we've done for the last 5 decades and turning on the next day a completely digital strategy. We recognize that what's really necessary is a transition to a digital strategy that goes along with what we do in the offline world. And I'll point back to Amazon. They have done a great job on their digital strategy. They also have done a phenomenal job and invested huge in their order fulfillment system. And all that happens in the offline world behind the scenes. So when it comes to heavy duty companies, this is about adding and transitioning, but not about completely replacing. Because I think for a very long time, there's still going to be the need for person-to-person interaction in heavy duty. But how do we add to what we already do really, really well in the offline? And how do we make that work concurrently with what we're doing in the digital space?
That's perfect, Jamie. Thank you for adding that, because that's such an important point, transition.
Objections.
Objections, handling objections is we do find in many of the companies that we work with that there are stakeholders that have different views about the need to move online. And there are some that just believe that that's not the way their customers do business with them. And then there are others that believe, oh gosh, it's coming, we need to get ready for it, right? And I think it's important that everybody sit down together and discuss the myth of the way in which your customers want to do business with you. And often the best way to eliminate a myth is to experience how your customers have to do business with you today. Taking phone calls, or listening in on a customer service call, or watching and listening to customer comments when they come to the counter, reading the emails that come to customer service, because very quickly you should be identifying through that process where are the friction areas in whether it truly is easy to do business with you, and some of the things that could be converted online to get answers faster. I think often people are so far removed from the way in which customers are experiencing doing business with you that they think they know how they want to do it, but that might not be the reality. So you've got to get into the facts.
And remember that objections are the signposts that lead to the sale. So are your customers objecting in a heck no, I never want to do that, I never will do it that way. If you don't have a counter for me to come to, I'm not going to buy from you. Is it that? Or is it, I'm scared of using these tools because I don't use them myself. I know my wife orders some stuff online, but I'd never do. And I'm worried about losing that relationship with the Hanks of the world that have so much experience. I have some fear around that. But, if we listen to those objections and we say, well, what can we do to help them and to make it so that they go from, I don't really want to do that to, wow, I can't imagine doing it any other way. So listen to the objections. Inside of those objections is the solution for your specific company and your specific situation. Taryn, we had a couple more questions come in. Do you want to give us the next one?
Yep. So these two questions actually go hand in hand with each other. So I'll just shoot them out together. So the first one is, always hide the real part numbers behind their own part number. Until there is an ACES for heavy duty, how do we identify these parts? And the second one is, do you think that we will ever have heavy duty ACES and PIES data?
So I can start this conversation, the answer off. Are we going to have ACES and PIES? Absolutely. The automotive took 15 years to produce it, light duty. Heavy duty will do it in 5. So between 2020 and 2025 is the time period where ACES and PIES will be developed. And we know that from past guests on the Heavy Duty Parts Report, Brian Thusen from OptiCap, that their whole company is focused on providing that standard to the industry. They did it for light duty. They're going to do it for heavy duty. Parts identification is another part. And I know, Kris, in your work with manufacturers, search is such an important part of all of this. And it is true that OEMs do often change part numbers dozens of times, and they make that very difficult. So there are emerging technologies like diesel parts that can be found at parts.diesellaptops.com. And that's just one of the parts platforms out there that is focusing on not only cross-reference information, but also parts lookup information without a VIN. So exploded views, year, make, model, and engine, component search, and also by measurement search, where if you don't have any idea what it is, but you can put a tape measure on it, you can start to figure it out and it'll tell you what to measure. So go to parts.diesellaptops.com. That's one of the technologies that's available that is really working on solving this for the aftermarket, connecting them with good, solid OE to aftermarket data. Kris, would you like to add anything to that?
Yeah, I think you nailed everything that I was thinking. Certainly technology is available today to make all of the cross-references available. We have customers who use ACES and PIES data. Again, that's a data element that made the identification of parts easier in automotive. And as you said, it's coming to heavy duty as well. So our solutions will be handling whatever categories of data are available for specific specific parts and, of course, their application. So I think that these are common things across every company. The way parts have changed over the years, you go back to paper manuals where there was an old part number and might be crossed off in that manual and have a new part number, and cross off again and have a new part number. And then the manufacturer number might be one, and then the distributor's part number is a separate part number, right? So with diesel parts and all technologies that are good today, they're going to offer you the ability to cross to all of those. So when anybody puts anyone, even that old paper manual one, into that search box, it brings you to the part that you need today. So those relationships can be maintained and still make it easy for people to find what they're looking for.
And just in case someone's not familiar with this acronym ACES and PIES, so ACES is year, make, model information. And PIES is more of the actual, like, how much does it weigh? What are its specific dimensions? And these are just two standards that were created for the light duty automotive sector and are now being brought over to heavy duty. And it's just a data standard that makes it so that everybody's putting their data in the same format, so that through something called API access, you can pull data from one database to another. So if you're trying to sell parts, you can pull that data from the manufacturer into your e-commerce platform. And that way you don't have to manually update all the data. Whenever the person who's giving you access to that data updates it, it automatically happens in your system. So there's a lot of technical stuff behind the scenes, but that's basically the simplest way I can describe how that works and what those things are.
Perfect.
All right. Well, Taryn, do we have any more questions, or did we answer everyone's questions?
No, it looks like you got it covered.
Well, Kris, thank you so much for joining me again today. And I really hope that people who are watching this and the replay will take advantage of that special offer that you are extending to our audience. Really, really grateful. It's a huge value, and it's really going to help your company to begin the process of making that transition. So, Kris, once again, thanks so much for being on the show. I appreciate it.
Thank you. It was a pleasure.
You can watch our next video. Make sure to click the like button, write a comment, and don't forget to subscribe.